Have you ever wondered if your fate was sealed the moment you were born? For centuries, that was the core idea behind things like numerology. But what happens when you take that ancient belief and pit it against some cold, hard, modern statistics? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today, the actual science behind destiny. So imagine this. You go to a fortune teller and they tell you you're destined for wealth. I mean, who doesn't want to hear that, right? But is that a solid gold guarantee, something that's locked into your future? Or is it something else? Is it a promise, or is it just a probability? And this right here is the big question. When someone claims to have a 100% accurate prediction, are they really giving you a sneak peek into the future? Or is it a clever statistical trap that just plays on our natural ability to see patterns? We're going to treat this whole thing like a scientific hypothesis. So let's put it to the test.
Okay, first up, we are going to challenge the very foundation of this idea of an absolute destiny. And we're not going to use feelings or faith. Nope. We're going to use simple math. This concept is called the Kocherter paradox. And trust me, it's the first major crack in the wall of a pre-written life.
And it all comes down to this number, 77. What's so special about 77? Well, it's the number that kind of mathematically dismantles the entire idea that your life is just a movie and you're just reading the lines from a script.
So here's the breakdown. In traditional Chinese numerology, there are just under 260,000 unique birth charts. Now, if you run that calculation against a population of, say, 20 million people, the math shows that you have about 76 numerological twins out there, people walking around with the exact same chart as you.
So here is the crucial point. If your birth chart was a rigid, unchangeable script, then all 77 of you and your 76 twins, should be living identical lives. I mean, getting married on the same day, making the same amount of money, even dying at the exact same moment. But we all know that's not just unlikely, it's completely impossible. Reality shows us that every life is unique, and that single paradox is fatal to the idea of a 100% fixed destiny.
Okay, so if the whole fixed script model is broken, do we just throw out the entire idea of a birth chart? Well, not so fast. The paper we're looking at suggests we just need a better model, one that swaps out those rigid predictions for statistical probabilities. And the perfect tool for that job is the bell curve.
Now, this is the big shift in thinking you have to make. Your birth chart isn't your destination, it's your starting point. It's your statistical average. Think of it like the center of gravity for your life's path. It's the point that all your experiences will naturally kind of pull towards.
You see, when you map out all the potential outcomes in a person's life, the amazing wins, the tough losses, all of it, they don't just land randomly. They tend to cluster around that central average that's set by the chart. And this pattern? It's one of the most common patterns in all of nature and statistics. It's called a normal distribution, but you probably know it as the bell curve.
Now, what's so fascinating here is that we can actually start to quantify destiny. According to statistics, about 68% of your life events are probably going to fall within this central high probability zone. This is your most likely path. But look at that. That leaves almost a third of your life in what's called the outlier zone. And that, my friends, is where free will really gets to play.
So that 68%, that's the mainstream path. It's the territory that a good numerologist is actually mapping out for you. And it's the very reason fortune telling so often feels spot on. Because for most people, most of the time, life sticks pretty close to the statistical average. It isn't magic, it's just reading the highest probability outcomes.
But that other 32%, that's the wild card. These are the outliers. This is the statistical space where you can dramatically outperform or, underperform your chart's average prediction. This isn't the realm of destiny anymore. This is the arena for choice, for effort, for pure luck. This is where you find the rule breakers and the record setters. The paper uses this fantastic analogy of a wave. Your chart might set the frequency of an event, let's say a period that's predisposed to financial trouble. But your choices and actions, they determine the amplitude of that wave. Is it just a small ripple where you misplace your wallet? Okay, that's a standard 68% outcome. Or is it a massive tidal wave of bankruptcy? That's an extreme outlier, and it's driven by your decisions, not by destiny.
And this is where the story gets really interesting. It turns out that the very tools that skeptics use to disprove numerology, well, they might actually be the strongest proof of its core principle. Let's dig into this because it is a beautiful, beautiful piece of scientific irony. As the author of the paper, Liao Ran Shan Ren, puts it,
The very weapon used by opponents to attack a theory often becomes the strongest evidence for it. It's a kind of mind-bending idea that has popped up in science before, and the argument here is that numerology is a perfect example of it in action.
And this just brilliantly illustrates the entire argument. I mean, think about it. If life were totally random, like a pure skeptic might argue, then a graph of life events would be a perfectly flat line. Any outcome would be just as likely as any other. But that is not what we see in reality. Instead, over and over, we see that bell curve again. Outcomes always cluster around a central point.
So that leaves this massive question just hanging in the air. If the data isn't random, what is creating that pattern? What is this invisible center of gravity that is constantly pulling all the scattered data points of our lives into that very distinct bell shape?
And here's the punchline. That gravitational center is the birth chart. The very existence of the bell curve, the tool the skeptics use, proves there has to be some kind of centralizing tendency. By showing that life isn't random, they accidentally prove that something is providing a baseline. And the paper argues that something is exactly what numerology has been trying to measure all along.
Now, this doesn't mean every system that claims to read the future is created equal. Just like with scientific instruments, different predictive systems have different levels of resolution. You can think of it like they're all trying to look at the same thing, but some of them have a much blurrier lens than others. For example, take Eastern systems like BASI. They often use a 2-hour block as their smallest unit of time, so their theoretical precision hovers around that 60 to 70% mark. Now compare that to Western astrology, which can drill down to the minute, even the second, and heavily corrects for your exact location on Earth. Its theoretical precision can be much, much higher, but neither one is better. They're just different tools. One's a scale to weigh a person, the other is a precision caliper to measure a diamond. You just have to use the right tool for the job.
So after all the maths, all the paradoxes, where does that leave us? Well, it all comes down to this one really powerful shift in how we see things. What if destiny isn't a script you have to follow, but a map you get to navigate? So here it is, the big takeaway. Your birth chart is not an absolute sentence. It is a statistical average. 100% accuracy is a complete myth, because there is a hard scientific limit to how predictable things can be. The real power is in your free will, which determines the amplitude of your life, how you choose to navigate the probabilities. This doesn't debunk numerology, it completely reframes it. It's not magic. It's an ancient form of data science, based on patterns that people have observed for a very long time.
The author leaves us with this final, really humbling analogy for what a numerologist really is. They're not some all-knowing god with a crystal ball. No, they're more like a locksmith peering through a keyhole. They can see the general shape of the room, maybe where the big furniture is, but they can't see the tiny details, the pictures on the wall or the expression on your face. The view they have is real, but it's fundamentally always incomplete. And that brings us to the final and I think the most important question, the one this whole explainer has really been leading up to. If your birth chart is just the map and not the destination, where will you choose to go next?